Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast chat. And it's eating a little bit of chicken and rice and vegetables. And I thought I would cover a video that Clarence Kennedy made a few days ago. A lot of people asked me, Jason, check this video out. And then I had couple of people send it in my DMs. They're like, Jason, you'll appreciate this video. He said things that you have said in the past. There's a lot of overlap between your opinion and Clarence. And so I went over and watched it, and I want to state up front, I actually respect Clarence for making this video. And let me just put this out there. I don't like Clarence personally. It has nothing to do with his lifting, nothing to do with his professional work, nothing that he does as far as YouTube. My dislike of Clarence is because the guy basically jumped on the troll bandwagon years ago and was smack talking me, for over something that really shouldn't have been. And yeah, I took that personally, so I don't like Clarence personally. It has nothing to do with his opinion or him as an athlete. However, I will state that was years ago. And I think this video was really good that he made. And I think he made some great points. And I, quite frankly, respect him for making this video. Okay? I respect him for making this video more so than I dislike the nonsense in the past. Now, that being said, the highlights of it and the things that really struck home for me and the points that I like to make that he made. And you guys can go watch the video. It's about 30 minutes long, and it's worth watching if you're interested in this stuff. But the point that he made is that the majority of people have basically been programmed to believe that athletes are clean. So the majority of the population actually thinks that professional athletes and elite athletes are clean. And they've demonized PEDs accordingly. And again, this has been media, government, and everything has done this, particularly in the United States. But the reality is, as he pointed out, almost all elite athletes are on things. Almost all of them. The ones that a lot of people have this idea is that, hey, the ones who are caught, that's the ones who used, right? And that the majority are clean, and that's the exception. The reality is the clean one is the exception. And I agree with that. My own observations of the sports world for decades have led me to these same conclusions, plus of how bad drug testing is and understanding that it gives an advantage. Okay? And as he pointed out, you can't use that well just about hard work, because if you have a bunch of people who are competing in a sport who are all genetically gifted and talented at that sport, and they all have high work ethics, the person who puts stuff in their body and just passes through the drug test or avoids the drug test completely, which is a lot of what he pointed out, a lot of elite lifters have never been tested. A lot of elite athletes have never been drug tested. There's a pretty good chunk of athletes who are winning medals at the Olympics who have technically never been subjected to significant drug testing. Okay? And we spend billions of dollars on it. It's $4 billion every Olympic Games is spent on testing. Right. And so the point here is that as soon as this comes into the equation, they automatically have an advantage, and they are going to win. And it's unavoidable. They're going to win. Because if everybody involved at the high level of reaching to a certain point in a sport is gifted, genetically blessed, and has a high work ethic, the substances that improve drive, improve motivation, improve recovery from training, and improve work capacity, because that's why people take them. Hopefully people understand that. They give you the motivation to work harder because of the androgen receptors in the brain. Okay? They can push you to work even harder mentally. They help your body recover from the additional workloads, and they can improve work capacity. So all these things that people think, oh, that's what it is, it's about motivation, drive, and hard work. Except that you can't work as hard as the person who's taking stuff that enhances their work capacity and recovery from the training. In other words, they can recover from higher levels of training. Right? You can work yourself into the ground. Okay, a highly driven athlete can train themselves into the ground to where they regress and are injured and beat up and can't even compete anymore. A lot of these substances improve healing and recovery, so they can work even harder. And again, so if it's about hard work, then the person on stuff wins. They win because they can work harder and heal from it and recover from it better. So basically the people who have that mentality, because that's what they've been conditioned to believe, are actually not realizing they're saying that only the people on stuff can win, which is true. That is the reality. That is who's winning. Nobody's winning in elite sports or professional sports clean. And it's ridiculous to think that they are in light of that fact, because they can't work as hard. They can't recover. They can't heal the same. It matters. So, another big point that he made, and I agree with this, is the corruption in. Essentially, drug testing, because number one, it doesn't fully work. Number two, there's a whole system in place for it to where bribes, corruption, which country you're born in matters. Okay, people who are in certain countries who aren't going to be subject to as much testing have an advantage because they can use more stuff longer. They can stay on it for longer periods of time because they're not going to be tested that often. All right? They may not even be tested until they get to the Olympics. They might have 3 full years of no testing, do whatever they want. Get a lot done in 3 years. Maybe they then get tested the year that the games, the Olympics. All right, so the country you're in matters. Then we have all the issue with bribery. We have all the issue with corruption. Then we come over to the point of all the stuff with Balco Labs. Again, he raised this point too, designer drugs. There are dozens and dozens of substances out there, designer drugs and steroids at any given time that WADA doesn't even have a test for. And as soon as they develop a test, people crank out new ones. And I'm not going to get into all the specifics of what he talked about with testosterone and epitestosterone ratios. That's too much for this short of a video that I'm going to do. Valid points. And I think the one that I've made clear in the past, this is a big one. This is a big one. If this is about the athlete's health, then drug testing is the worst thing you can do. Do you know why? Because it forces them to have a smaller selection of stuff to use. In other words, we have a lot of these things out there that there have been long-term clinical trials on. We can assess the risk better. We know their toxicities, right? A lot of the substances that are easier to pass through the testing are harsher effects on the body, higher side effects. You know, things like higher levels of liver toxicity. They have oftentimes more problems, and that is oftentimes the case. So then in this case, what is the athlete? If the athlete just wants to get to the androgen receptor, dozens and dozens of different anabolics that do that. You're just trying to activate the androgen receptor for obvious reasons. Now they no longer have the choice to choose between, because they're all going to have to use. Right? And people have basically been lied to. It's like Clarence said in the video. There's a number of us out here who understand that all elite athletes are on. All of them. Okay, the one who isn't is the odd man out. That's like being struck by lightning. They're rare. They're the exception. 99% of them are on. The problem we come over to, they're all going to have to use. They're all going to have to compromise their health. Being an elite athlete will compromise your health, no matter what you do, okay? Because again, you're pushing the extremes, you're pushing the limits of your body through multiple ways, not just putting stuff in it. But what they have to choose between, let's say they have a whole list of substances now to choose between to get to the androgen receptor. Instead of saying, hey, which one's going to have the lowest side effects, which one's going to have the least negative effect on my health, they now have to pick which one is going to be easiest to get through the drug testing if I get tested. That now becomes the reason they select a certain substance, not which one's safer. And they do vary massively in terms of safety and side effects. Okay, but it comes down to them being willing to put much, much harsher substances into their body simply because it can pass a drug test. Much easier. That now becomes the criteria because they're all going to use anyways, whether you test or not. Okay, elite sports, these people want to win. Highly driven, highly motivated people will do whatever it takes to win. That is the mindset of a winner. I'm not saying that's a mindset of a healthy person or it's a good idea, but that is how sports work. And then you have the money and the prestige and all of that involved. Okay? There are people who make millions and millions and millions of dollars in sports. They've got a big financial incentive to win at any cost. And it doesn't matter whether you're in America playing football or you're in a smaller country to where a very poor country where you're going to be well taken care of. You get sponsorships and money. And what Clarence had basically said is that he wished that people had told him the truth when he was coming up. He had been told the same lie, this lie that we tell kids to protect them, because that's what Congress in America said, that's why we need to do this, to protect the children. This has actually been discussed in Congress. That sports, if you just work hard enough, that sports are clean at the top level, and if you just work hard enough, you can get there. And he said he feels betrayed, that he was lied to by everyone. And the reality is what they should have told them is that if you want to be at the top in any sport, you're going to have to use stuff. You have no choice, and you will compromise your health. It is going to cost you to be the best. And that maybe we shouldn't glorify it to the degree that we do. Right? We shouldn't push children to be ultra competitive at sports. Right? They need to be aware of the reality, the risk of it. It's going to come at a cost. You are going to sacrifice your health in multiple ways to become an elite athlete, and that's just the reality. He wishes that people would have been honest about it. And I agree. And I personally, ethically do not believe in drug testing in sports. I'm actually ethically opposed to the idea for the reasons that I brought up. It creates unfairness. It creates disadvantage. It also puts the athletes at a higher risk of harming their health. And that's a big deal. It does the exact opposite of what it pretends to do. That we're doing this to protect the athlete's health because they shouldn't be forced to use. Well, they don't have a choice. It's an ultra-competitive environment, and drug testing, it can never be foolproof. Ultra-competitive environment. They don't have a choice already. They just have to make bigger compromises in their health now because of the testing. And I think that's one of the most important points that Clarence drove home. And that and the sheer amount of corruption involved with the whole anti-doping thing. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.